Chapter 11. She prospered their works in the hand of the holy prophet. They went through the wilderness that was not inhabited, and pitched tents in places where there lay no way. They stood against their enemies and were avenged of their adversaries. When they were thirsty, they called upon you, and water was given them out of the flinty rock, and their thirst was quenched out of the hard stone. For by what things their enemies were punished, by the same they in their need were benefited. For instead of a perpetual running river troubled with foul blood, for a manifest reproof of that commandment whereby the infants were slain, you gave unto them abundance of water by a means which they hoped not for, declaring by that thirst then how you had punished their adversaries. For when they were tried, albeit but in mercy chastised, they knew how the wicked were judged in wrath and tormented, thirsting in another manner than the just. For these you did admonish and try as a father, but the others, as a severe king, you did condemn and punish. Whether they were absent or present, they were vexed alike. For a double grief came upon them, and a groaning for the remembrance of things past. For when they heard by their own punishments the other to be benefited, they had some feeling of Yahuah, for whom they respected with scorn, when he was long before thrown out at the casting forth of the infants. Him, in the end, when they saw what came to pass, they admired. But for the foolish devices of their wickedness, wherewith being deceived, they worshipped serpents void of reason, and vile beasts, you did send a multitude of unreasonable beasts upon them for vengeance, that they might know that wherewithal a man sins, by the same also shall he be punished. For your almighty hand, that made the world of matter without form, wanted not means to send among them a multitude of bears or fierce lions, or unknown wild beasts, full of rage, newly created, breathing out either a fiery vapor or filthy scents of scattered smoke, or shooting horrible sparks out of their eyes, wherewith not only the harm might dispatch them at once, but also the terrible sight utterly destroy them. Yea, and without these might they have fallen down with one blast, being persecuted of vengeance and scattered abroad through the breath of your power. But you have ordered all things in measure and number and weight. For you can show your great strength at all times when you will. And who may withstand the power of your arm? For the whole world before you is as little grain of the balance, yea, as a drop of the morning dew that falls down upon the earth. But you have mercy upon all, for you can do all things, and wink at the sins of men, because they should amend. For you love all the things that are, and abhor nothing which you have made. For never would you have made anything if you had hated it. And how could anything have endured if it had not been your will, or been preserved if not called by you? But you spare all, for they are yours, O Yahuah, lover of souls. Chapter 12. For your incorruptible Ruach is in all things. Therefore chasten them by little and little that offend, and warn them by putting them in remembrance wherewith they have offended, that leaving their wickedness, they may believe on you, O Yahuah. For it was your will to destroy by the hands of our fathers both those old inhabitants of your holy land, whom you hated for doing most odious works of witchcrafts and wicked sacrifices, and also those merciless murderers of children and devourers of man's flesh, and the feasts of blood, with their priests out of the midst of their idolatrous crew, and the parents that killed with their own hands souls destitute of help, that the land which you esteemed above all other might receive a worthy colony of Elohim's children. Nevertheless, even those you spared as men, and did send wasps, forerunners of your host, to destroy them by little and little. Not that you were unable to bring the wicked under the hand of the righteous in battle, or to destroy them at once with cruel beasts, or with one rough word, but executing your judgments upon them by little and little, you gave them place of repentance, not being ignorant that they were a naughty generation, and that their malice was bred in them, and that their cogitation would never be changed. For it was a cursed seed from the beginning, neither did you for fear of any man give them pardon for those things wherein they sinned. For who shall say, what have you done? Or who shall withstand your judgment? Or who shall accuse you for the nations that perish, whom you made? Or who shall come to stand against you, to be revenged by the unrighteous men? For neither is there any Elohim but you, that cares for all, to whom you might show that your judgment is not upright. Neither shall king or tyrant be able to set his face against you for any whom you have punished. For so much then as you are righteous yourself, you order all things righteously, thinking it not agreeable with your power to condemn him that has not deserved to be punished. For your power is the beginning of righteousness, and because you are Yahuah of all, it makes you to be gracious unto all. For when men will not believe that you are of a full power, you show your strength, and among them that know it, you make their boldness manifest. But you, mastering your power, judge with equity, and order us with great favor, for you may use power when you will. But by such works have you taught your people that the just man shall be merciful, and have made your children to be of good hope, that you give repentance for sins. For if you did punish the enemies of your children, and the condemned to death, with such deliberation, giving them time and place whereby they might be delivered from their malice, with how great circumspection did you judge your own sons, into whose fathers you have sworn and made covenants of good promises. Therefore, whereas you do chasten us, you scourge our enemies 1,000 times more, to the intent that, when we judge, we should carefully think of your goodness, and when we ourselves are judged, we should look for mercy. Wherefore, whereas men have lived dissolutely and unrighteously, you have tormented them with their own abominations. For they went astray very far in the ways of error, and held them for Elohim, which even among the beasts of their enemies were despised, being deceived, as children of no understanding. Therefore unto them, as to children without the use of reason, you did send a judgment to mock them. But they that would not be formed by that correction, wherein he dallied with them, shall feel a judgment worthy of Elohim. For look, for what thing they grudged when they were punished, that is, for them whom they thought to be Elohim. Now being punished in them, when they saw it, they acknowledged him to be the true Elohim, whom before they denied to know, and therefore came extreme damnation upon them. Chapter 13. Surely vain are all men by nature who are ignorant of Elohim, and could not out of the good things that are seen know him that is. Neither by considering the works did they acknowledge the workmaster, but deemed either fire or wind, or the swift air, or the circle of the stars, or the violet water, or the lights of heaven, to be the Elohim which governed the world, with whose beauty, if they being delighted, took them to be Elohim. Let them know how much better Yahuah of them is, for the first author of beauty has created them. And if they were astonished at their power and virtue, let them understand by them how much mightier he is that made them. For by the greatness and beauty of the creatures proportionately the maker of them is seen. But yet, for this they are the less to be blamed. For they perchance err, seeking Elohim, and desirous to find him. For being conversant in his works, they search him diligently, and believe their sight, because the things are beautiful that are seen, howbeit neither are they to be pardoned. For if they were able to know so much that they could aim at the world, how did they not sooner find out Yahuah thereof? But miserable are they, and in dead things is their hope, who call them Elohim, which are the work of men's hands, gold and silver, to show art in, and resemblance of beasts, or a stone good for nothing, the work of an ancient hand. Now a carpenter that fells timber, after he has sawn down a tree meet for the purpose, and taken off all the bark skillfully round about, and has wrought it handsomely, and made a vessel thereof, fit for the service of man's life, and after spending the refuse of his work to dress his meat, has filled himself, and taking the very refuse among those which served to no use, being a crooked piece of wood, and full of knots, has carved it diligently when he had nothing else to do, and formed it by the skill of his understanding, and fashioned it to the image of a man, or made it like some vile beast, laying it over with vermilion, and with paint coloring it red, and covering every spot therein. And when he had made a convenient room for it, set it in a wall, and made it fast with iron. For he provided for it that it might not fall, knowing that it was unable to help itself. For it is an image, and has need of help. Then makes he prayer for his goods, for his woman and children, and is not ashamed to speak to that which has no life. For help he calls upon that which is weak. For life, prays to that which is dead. For aid, humbling beseech that which has least means to help, and for a good journey he asks of that which cannot set a foot forward. And for gaining and getting, and for good success of his hands, ask ability to do of him that is most unable to do anything. Chapter 14. Again, one preparing himself to sail, and about to pass through the raging waves, calls upon a piece of wood more rotten than the vessel that carries him. For truly desire of gain devised that, and the workman built it by his skill. But your providence, O Father, governs it, for you have made a way in the sea, and a safe path in the waves, showing that you can save from all danger. Yea, though a man went to sea without art, nevertheless you would not that the works of your wisdom should be idle, and therefore do men commit their lives to a small piece of wood, and passing through the rough sea in a weak vessel are saved. For in the old time also, when the proud Nephilim perished, the hope of the world governed by your hand escaped in a weak vessel, and left to all ages a seed of generation. For blessed is the wood whereby righteousness comes, for that which is made with hands is cursed, as well it as he that made it. He, because he made it, and it, because, being corruptible, it was called Elohim. For the wicked and his wickedness are both alike, hateful unto Elohim. For that which is made shall be punished together with him that made it. Therefore, even upon the idols of the other nations shall there be a visitation, because in the creation of Elohim they are become an abomination, and stumbling blocks to the souls of men, and a snare to the feet of the unwise. For the devising of idols was the beginning of spiritual fornication, and the invention of them that corruption of life. For neither were they from the beginning, neither shall they be forever. For by the vain glory of men they entered into the world, and therefore shall they come shortly to an end. For a father afflicted with untimely mourning, when he has made an image of his child soon taken away, now honored him as an Elohim, which was then a dead man, and delivered to those that were under him ceremonies and sacrifices. Thus, in process of time, a wicked custom grown strong was kept as a law, and graven images were worshipped by the commandments of kings, whom men could not honor in presence, because they dwelt far off. They took the counterfeit of his visage from far, and made an express image of a king whom they honored, to the end that by this their forwardness they might flatter him that was absent, as if he were present. Also the singular diligence of the artificer did help to set forward the ignorant to more superstition, for he, perchance willing to please one in authority, forced all his skill to make the resemblance of the best fashion. And so the multitude, allured by the grace of the work, took him now for an Elohim, which a little before was but honored. And this was an occasion to deceive the world, for men serving either calamity or tyranny did ascribe unto stones and stocks the incommunicable name. Moreover, this was not enough for them, that they erred in the knowledge of Elohim, but whereas they lived in the great war of ignorance, those so great plagues called they peace. For while they slew their children in sacrifices, or used secret ceremonies, or made revelings of strange rites, they kept neither lives nor marriages any longer undefiled. But either one slew another traitorously, or grieved him by breaking wedlock, so that there reigned in all men, without exception, blood, manslaughter, theft, dissimulation, corruption, unfaithfulness, tumults, perjury, disquieting of good men, forgetfulness of good turns, defiling of souls, changing of kind, disorder in marriages, breaking wedlock, and shameless uncleanness. For the worshipping of idols not to be named is the beginning, the cause, and the end of all evil. For either they are mad when they be merry, or prophesy lies, or live unjustly, or else lightly forswear themselves, for so much so as their trust is in idols which have no life. Though they swear falsely, yet they look not to be hurt. Howbeit, for both causes shall they be justly punished, both because they thought not well of Elohim, giving heed unto idols, and also unjustly swore in deceit, despising holiness. For it is not the power of them by whom they swear, but it is the just vengeance of sinners that punishes always the offense of the wicked. Chapter 15. But you, O Elohim, are gracious and true, long-suffering and in mercy, ordering all things. For if we sin, we are yours, knowing your power. But we will not sin, knowing that we are counted yours. For to know you is perfect righteousness. Yea, to know your power is the root of immortality. For neither did the mischievous invention of men deceive us, nor an image spotted with diverse colors, the painter's fruitless labor, the sight whereof entices fools to lust after it, and so they desire the form of a dead image that has no breath. Both they that make them, they that desire them, and they that worship them are lovers of evil things, and are worthy to have such things to trust upon. For the potter, tempering soft earth, fashions every vessel with much labor for our service. Yea, of the same clay he makes both the vessels that serve for clean uses, and likewise also all such as serve to the contrary. But what is the use of either sort? The potter himself is the judge. And employing his labors lewdly, he makes a vain Elohim of the same clay, even he which a little before was made of earth himself, and within a little while after returns to the same, when his life, which was lent him, shall be demanded. Notwithstanding, his care is, not that he shall have much labor, nor that his life is short, but strives to excel goldsmiths and silversmiths, and endeavors to do like the workers in brass, and counts it his glory to make counterfeit things. His heart is ashes, his hope is more vile than earth, and his life of less value than clay. Forasmuch as he knew not his Maker, and him that inspired into him an active soul, and breathed in a living ruach, but they counted our life a pastime, and our time here a market for gain. For say they, we must getting every way, though it be by evil means. For this man, that of earthly matter makes brittle vessels and graven images, knows himself to offend above all others. And all the enemies of your people that hold them in subjection are most foolish, and are more miserable than very babes. For they counted all the idols of the heathen to be Elohim, which neither have the use of eyes to see, nor noses to draw breath, nor ears to hear, nor fingers of hands to handle. As for their feet, they are slow to go. For a man made them, and he that borrowed his own ruach fashioned them. But no man can make an Elohim like unto himself. For being mortal, he works a dead thing with wicked hands. For he himself is better than the things which he worships, whereas he lived once, but they never. Yea, they worshipped those beasts also that are most hateful. For being compared together, some are worse than others. Neither are they beautiful so much as to be desired in respect of beasts. But they went without the praise of Elohim and his blessing. Chapter 16. Therefore by the like were they punished worthily, and by the multitude of beasts tormented. Instead of which punishment, dealing graciously with your own people, you prepared for them meat of a strange taste, even quails to stir up their appetite, to the end that they, desiring food, might, for the ugly sight of the beasts, sent among them loathe even that which they must needs desire. But these, suffering penury for a short space, might be made partakers of a strange taste. For it was requisite that upon them exercising tyranny should come penury, which they could not avoid. But to these it should only be showed how their enemies were tormented. For when the horrible fierceness of beasts came upon these, and they perished with the stings of crooked serpents, your wrath endured not forever. But they were troubled for a small season, that they might be admonished, having a sign of Yahuah, to put them in remembrance of the commandment of your Torah. For he that turned himself toward it was not saved by the thing that he saw, but by you that are the Savior of all. And in this you made your enemies confess that it is you who deliver from all evil. For them the biting of grasshoppers and flies killed, neither was there found any remedy for their life, for they were worthy to be punished by such. But your sons, not the very teeth of venomous dragons overcame, for your mercy was ever by them, and healed them. For they were pricked that they should remember your words, and were quickly saved, that not falling into deep forgetfulness, they might be continually mindful of your goodness. For it was neither herb nor mollifying plaister that restored them to health, but your word, O Yahuah, which heals all things. For you have power of life and death. You lead to the gates of Sheol and bring up again. A man indeed kills through his malice, and the Ruach, when it is gone forth, returns not. Neither the soul received up comes again. But it is not possible to escape your hand, for the wicked that denied to know you were scourged by the strength of your arm. With strange rains, hails, and showers were they persecuted, that they could not avoid, and through fire were they consumed. For which is most to be wondered at, the fire had more force than the water that quenches all things. For the world fights for the righteous. For some time the flame was mitigated, that it might not burn up the beasts that were sent against the wicked, but themselves might see and perceive that they were persecuted with the judgment of Elohim. And at another time it burns even in the midst of water above the power of fire, that it might destroy the fruit of an unjust land. Instead whereof you fed your own people with angels' food, and did send them from heaven bread prepared without their labor, able to content every man's delight and green to every taste. For your sustenance declared your sweetness unto your children, and serving to the appetite of the eater, tempered itself to every man's liking. But snow and ice endured the fire and melted not, that they might know that fire burning in the hail and sparkling in the rain did destroy the fruits of the enemies. But this again did even forget his own strength, that the righteous might be nourished. For the creature that serves you, who are the Maker, increases his strength against the unrighteous for their punishment, and abates his strength for the benefit of such as put their trust in you. Therefore, even then was it altered into all fashions, and was obedient to your grace, that nourishes all things according to the desire of them that had need, that your children, O Yahuah, whom you love, might know that it is not the growing of fruits that nourishes man, but that it is your word which preserves them that put their trust in you. For that which was not destroyed of the fire, being warmed with a little sunbeam, soon melted away, that it might be known that we must prevent the sun to give you thanks, and at the dayspring pray unto you. For the hope of the unthankful shall melt away as the winter's hoarfrost, and shall run away as unprofitable water. Chapter 17. For great are your judgments, and cannot be expressed. Therefore unnurtured souls have erred. And when unrighteous men thought to oppress the holy nation, they, being shut up in their houses, the prisoners of darkness, and fettered with the bonds of a long night, lay there exiled from the eternal providence. For while they supposed to lie hid in their secret sins, they were scattered under a dark veil of forgetfulness, being horribly astonished and troubled with strange apparitions. For neither might the corner that held them keep them from fear, but noises as of waters falling down sounded about them, and sad visions appeared unto them with heavy countenances. No power of the fire might give them light, neither could the bright flames of the stars endure to lighten that horrible night. Only there appeared unto them a fire kindled of itself, very dreadful. For being much terrified, they thought the things which they saw to be worse than the sight they saw not. As for the illusions of art magic, they were put down, and their vaunting in wisdom was reproved with disgrace. For they that promised to drive away terrors and troubles from a sick soul were sick themselves of fear, worthy to be laughed at. For though no terrible thing did fear them, yet being scared with beasts that passed by, and hissing of serpents, they died for fear, denying that they saw the air which could of no side be avoided. For wickedness, condemned by her own witness, is very timorous, and being pressed with conscience, always forecasts grievous things. For fear is nothing else but a betraying of the helps which reason offers. And the expectation from within, being less, counts the ignorance more than the cause which brings the torment. But they, sleeping the same sleep that night, which was indeed intolerable, and which came upon them out of the bottoms of inevitable Sheol, were partly vexed with monstrous apparitions, and partly fainted, and their heart failing them. For a sudden fear, and not looked for, came upon them. So then whosoever there fell down was straitly kept, shut up in a prison without iron bars. For whether he were husbandman or shepherd or a laborer in the field, he was overtaken, and endured that necessity which could not be avoided. For they were all bound with one chain of darkness. Whether it were a whistling wind, or a melodious noise of birds among the spreading branches, or a pleasing fall of water running violently, or a terrible sound of stones cast down, or a running that could not be seen of skipping beasts, or a roaring voice of most savage wild beasts, or a rebounding echo from the hollow mountains, these things made them to swoon for fear. For the whole world shined with clear light, and none were hindered in their labor. Over them only was spread a heavy night, an image of that darkness which should afterward receive them. But yet were they unto themselves more grievous than the darkness. Chapter 18. Nevertheless, your Kodashim had a very great light, whose voice they hearing, and not seeing their shape, because they also had not suffered the same thing, they counted them happy. But for that they did not hurt them now, and of whom they had been wronged before, they thanked them, and besought them pardon for that they had been enemies. Instead whereof they gave them a burning pillar of fire, both to be a guide of the unknown journey, and a harmless sun to entertain them honorably. For they were worthy to be deprived of light and imprisoned in darkness, who had kept your sons shut up, by whom the incorrupt light of the Torah was to be given unto the world. For when they had determined to slay the babes of the Kodashim, one child being cast forth and saved to reprove them, they took away the multitude of their children and destroyed them altogether in a mighty water. Of that night were our fathers certified afore, that assuredly, knowing unto what oaths they had given credence, they might afterwards be of good cheer. So of your people who accepted both the Yeshua of the righteous and destruction of the enemies, for wherewith you did punish our adversaries, by the same you did glorify us, whom you had called. For the righteous children of good men did sacrifice secretly, and with one consent made a holy law, that the Kodashim should be like partakers of the same good and evil, the fathers now singing out the songs of praise. But on the other side there sounded an ill according cry of the enemies, and a lamentable noise was carried abroad for children that were bewailed. The master and the servant were punished after one manner, and like as the king, so suffered the common person. So they altogether had innumerable dead, with one kind of death, neither were the living sufficient to bury them. For in one moment the noblest offspring of them was destroyed. For whereas they would not believe anything by reason of the enchantments upon the destruction of the firstborn, they acknowledged this people to be the sons of Elohim. For while all things were in quiet silence, and that night was in the midst of her swift course, your almighty word leaped down from heaven out of your royal throne, as a fierce man of war into the midst of a land of destruction, and brought your unfeigned commandment as a sharp sword, and standing up filled all things with death, and it touched the heaven, but it stood upon the earth. Then suddenly visions of horrible dreams troubled them sore, and terrors came upon them unlooked for, and one thrown here and another there half dead showed the cause of his death. For the dreams that troubled them did foreshow this, lest they should perish and not know why they were afflicted. Yea, the tasting of death touched the righteous also, and there was a destruction of the multitude in the wilderness. But the wrath endured not long. For then the blameless man made haste and stood forth to defend them, and bringing the shield of his proper ministry, even prayer, and the propitiation of incense, set himself against the wrath, and so brought the calamity to an end, declaring that he was your servant. So he overcame the destroyer, not with strength of body, nor force of arms, but with the word subdued him that punished, alleging the oaths and covenants made with the fathers. For when the dead were fallen down by heaps, one upon another, standing between, he stayed the wrath, and parted the way of the living. For in the long garment was the whole world, and in the 4 rows of the stones was the glory of the fathers graven, and your majesty upon the diadem of his head. Unto these the destroyer gave place, and was afraid of them, for it was enough that they only tasted the wrath. Chapter 19. As for the wicked, wrath came upon them without mercy unto the end, for he knew before what they would do. how that having given them leave to depart and sent them hastily away, they would repent and pursue them. For while they were yet mourning and making lamentation at the graves of the dead, they added another foolish device, and pursued them as fugitives whom they had entreated to be gone. For the destiny whereof they were worthy drew them unto this end, and made them forget the things that had already happened, that they might fulfill the punishment which was wanting to their torments, and that your people might pass a wonderful way, but they might find a strange death. For the whole creature in his proper kind was fashioned again anew, serving the peculiar commandments that were given unto them, that your children might be kept without hurt, as namely a cloud shadowing the camp, and where water stood before, dry land appeared, and out of the Red Sea a way without impediment, and out of the violent stream a green field, where through all the people went that were defended with your hand, seeing your marvelous strange wonders. For they went at large like horses, and leaped like lambs, praising you, O Yahuah, who had delivered them. For they were yet mindful of the things that were done, while they sojourned in the strange land, how the ground brought forth flies instead of cattle, and how the river cast up a multitude of frogs instead of fish. But afterwards they saw a new generation of fowls, when, being led with their appetite, they asked delicate meats. For quail came up unto them from the sea of their contentment, and punishments came upon the sinners, not without former signs by the force of thunders. For they suffered justly according to their own wickedness, so much so as they used a more hard and hateful behavior toward strangers. For the Sodomine did not receive those whom they knew not when they came, but these brought friends into bondage that had well deserved of them. And not only so, but perchance some respect shall be had of those, because they used strangers not friendly. But these very grievously afflicted them whom they had received with feastings, and were already made partakers of the same laws with them. Therefore, even with blindness were they stricken, as those were at the doors of the righteous man, when, being compassed about with horrible great darkness, everyone sought the passage of his own doors. For the elements were changed in themselves by a kind of harmony, like as in the psaltery notes change the name of the tune, and yet are always sounds, which may well be perceived by the sight of the things that have been done. For earthly things were turned into watery, and the things that before swam in the water now went upon the ground. The fire had power in the water, forgetting its own virtue, and the water forgot his own quenching nature. On the other side, the flames wasted not the flesh of the corruptible living things, though they walked therein, neither melted they the icy kind of heavenly meat that was of nature apt to melt. For in all things, O Yahuah, you did magnify your people and glorify them, neither did you lightly regard them, but did assist them in every time and place.